Hello and a very good evening. The 16th plenary meeting of the Hong Kong-Guangdong Cooperation Joint Conference took place in Hong Kong today, and officials from both sides signed 8 cooperation agreements. Meanwhile, the Guangdong Provincial Governor says mainland authorities will take good control of the number of travellers visiting Hong Kong so as not to overburden the SAR. Vicky Kung reports.
Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying and Guangdong Provincial Governor Zhu Xiaodan jointly led today's meeting. The 2-hour discussion ended with the signing of 8 cooperation agreements. Both sides agreed to create a free trade zone for services in the region. There are also plans to better control product quality and to develop intellectual property rights, tourism, and the movie industry. Reporters asked Governor Zhu questions about the increasing number of mainland tourists visiting the SAR under the individual visit scheme and subsequent problems like overcrowding. Zhu promised to work with the SAR to make sure the number of mainland visitors will not exceed Hong Kong's capacity to receive tourists. The CE, meanwhile, pointed out that mainland authorities have only opened up the visitors scheme to 49 out of the 600-plus cities in the country. The chief executive also stressed the importance of mainland visitors to Hong Kong's tourism industry. He said the city should look into how it can take on more tourists. Vicky Kung, TVB News.
A Legislative Council Bills Committee has resumed its debate on the government's property cooling measures. While some argue the government is rejecting amendments way too early, officials have warned of serious consequences if too many exemptions are allowed. Kirti Nandwani reports.
Exemption for Hong Kong-owned companies from the Buyer's Stamp Duty Amendment Bill. That's one of the suggestions today on how the government's property cooling measures can be a little less tough.
What level does the market has to drop to before it is withdrawn? We propose a refund if the property is owned for 3 years without any change of shareholders of directors, then surely it is not a speculation. So we have closed all the loopholes.
That's just one of a long list of amendments proposed for the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill as legislators try to water down what some believe to be too much government control. Hong Kong permanent residents buying residential properties are already exempted. The government would not budge on Hong Kong-owned companies and charity organizations.
If we were to exempt all companies wholly owned by Hong Kong PL from paying this BSD, then the risks cannot be underestimated.
He warned that too many exemptions to stamp duty payments will give the impression that the government lacks determination in stabilizing housing prices. The housing chief is also worried that too lax a bill will risk a bubble in the property market and in turn harm the economy. The Bills Committee will meet again early next month. When it wraps up its debate, the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill will go to the full Legislative Council to its second reading. Kirti Nandwani, TVB News.
Beijing has expressed its displeasure over a British minister's recent claim that the UK stands ready to support Hong Kong's democratic progress. A Foreign Ministry spokesman said Hong Kong does not need any such support. Jenny Lam reports.
He was referring to British Minister of State at the Foreign Office, Hugo Swire, whose recent comments on universal suffrage in the SAR has sparked controversy. Swire said dialogue and cooperation between all parties will be vital for a smooth resolution, and of course, he added, Britain stands ready to support in any way it can. Beijing says there's no need for any such support from a foreign country and warned against any comment that might harm Hong Kong's stability. Foreign Ministry spokesman Hong Lei said Beijing is opposed to the British minister's comment on political development in Hong Kong. The SAR government, he added, has already stated its opposition to any foreign interference. Mainland newspaper Global Times also waded in on the issue. In a leading article, it rejected the Pan-Democrats' call for Beijing to regard Hong Kong as an independent political entity. The newspaper continued it would be impossible to get the central government's support on this, which is why it claimed the Pan-Democrats welcome British and US involvement to boost their voice. But the paper went on to say that Britain and the US would only do so out of their own interests. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
South Korean workers went back to their jobs today at the Kaesong Industrial Complex, jointly run by the South and North. Some 800 drivers, workers, and managers from the South resumed their positions at Kaesong 5 months after Pyongyang shut it down amid a torrent of threats against Seoul and Washington. Companies operating there estimate that they've lost a combined $920 million since the North pulled its 53,000 plant workers. The industrial park was established back in 2004 and considered a test case for reunification as it combined South Korean know-how with cheap North Korean labor. Full-scale operations are expected to resume shortly after today's trial run.
Former U.S. Treasury Secretary Lawrence Summers has pulled out of the race to replace Ben Bernanke as chairman of the Federal Reserve. Summers, a former top aide to President Barack Obama, was considered to be the frontrunner for the position after Bernanke's second term expires in January. But he was dogged by controversies, including his support for deregulation in the 1990s when he ran the Treasury Department in the Clinton administration. He was blamed by some for the financial crisis of 2008. Summers also took fire for comments he made about women's aptitude when he was president at Harvard University. His withdrawal appears to open the door for his chief rival, Janet Yellen, who's currently the Fed's vice chair. United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon will brief the Security Council today on a fact-finding group's findings on the alleged use of chemical weapons in Syria. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry has warned Syria the threat of force is real if it fails to hand over its chemical weapons. And in Washington, President Barack Obama says he's told Iran that its nuclear ambitions remains a bigger issue for the United States than Syria's chemical weapons. Alan Buckner reports.
John Kerry issued the warning during a stop in Jerusalem, where he briefed Israeli officials about the Russian-brokered deal that would see Syria's chemical weapons arsenal destroyed. He said diplomacy will only work if it's coupled with a credible military threat.
The threat of force is real, and the Assad regime and all those taking part need to understand that President Obama and the United States are committed to achieve this goal. We cannot have hollow words in the conduct of international affairs, because that affects all other issues, whether Iran or North Korea or any other.
Kerry stressed that the deal is a framework, not a final agreement.
It is a framework that must be put into effect by the United Nations now.
The deal was welcomed by the Israeli Prime Minister.
The Syrian regime must be stripped of all its chemical weapons, and that would make our entire region a lot safer.
Kerry then flew to Paris for a meeting with the French foreign minister to brief him about the deal.
Engineers began lifting the wrecked Costa Concordia cruise liner upright today. It is one of the most expensive and complex salvage operations in maritime history. The more than 114,000-ton cruise ship has been lying on its side for more than 20 months after it hit rocks off the Tuscan island of Giglio in January 2012, killing 32 people. Starting at 9 a.m., the par-buckling operation officially started. 11 engineers are expected to carry out controls both underwater and via cameras to monitor every movement of the ship. At an expected $795 million, this will be the most expensive maritime wreck recovery ever. Since the accident, 500 salvage engineers have worked to stabilize the wreck and prepare it for lifting, which must be done before the vessel can be towed away and then broken up.
And welcome back to TVB News. The commercial sector dominated the polls in the Macau Legislative Assembly election yesterday. They took half the 14 directly elected seats. The pro-democratic camp was able to retain 4 seats. Stephanie Choi has the story.
In a first since 1992, real estate and casino owner Cheng Ming-Kam's list secured 3 seats out of 14 with over 26,000 votes. Thanking his voters this afternoon, he said the results were beyond his expectations. Angela Leong, also in the casino business, though was the only person on the list elected to the assembly. The second candidate lost by less than 20 votes. Expressing her disappointment today, she said that she will lodge an appeal today on the results. 3 lists under the new Macau Association garnered 4,000 less votes than they did in the last election. Only Ng Kwok Cheung and Au Kam San were elected to the assembly. That's 1 seat less than the previous term. Drawing an analogy to living in a wealthy village, Ng said to win the election, it appears that a candidate must provide long-term material gain to the people. Pereira Coutinho's list secured a seat more than the previous term. That means the Democrats still have 4 seats. 3 seats went to grassroots representatives. There were 27,000 more registered voters this time around than in the last election. The turnout rate was about 55%, up 4.6 percentage points from the previous polls. The Electoral Affairs Commission said 13 people were arrested on suspicion that they were taking pictures inside polling stations. The anti-graft body in Macau is also investigating one alleged case of vote buying. Stephanie Choi, TVB News.
A study by the Department of Health found that Hong Kong people are eating less and less fruit and veggies. Doctors warn that this can increase the risk of heart disease. Stephanie Choi again.
Have you had your 5 servings of fruits and vegetables today?
I don't really eat them on a daily basis. I eat them whenever it's available.
I try my best, but not every day, no, unfortunately.
I don't really like the texture of fruit, so I don't usually eat fruit.
The Department of Health asked more than 2,000 people in April last year questions plus information about their weight and height, exercise regime, and smoking habit. Only 5% did not have any of these heart disease risk factors. 80% of those asked had less than 5 servings of fruit and vegetables a day, a 4% increase since a similar survey in 2008. Most of them were unmarried men doing office jobs. Dr. Lau Xueting of the Hong Kong College of Cardiology warns that not eating enough fruits and vegetables and a lack of exercise are linked to damage to the walls of blood vessels and an increase in the risk of coronary heart disease. So, what exactly is one serving? Well, that's approximately half the size of your fist, which means you need to have at least 2 fists worth of fruits and vegetables a day to stay healthy. Doctors' advice is try to eat at home and go for recipes that have more vegetables and less meat. Stephanie Choi, TVB News.
Organizers of the Standard Chartered Hong Kong Marathon are promising a bigger and even better event next year. More runners are being allowed to take part, and there will be more prize money on offer to those winners. Ronnie Samtani tells us more.
Organizers announced today that the total prize money has been increased to $300,000.
Well, obviously, we can't stop everybody not bringing the cell phone to the race. So what we will do is, from time to time, we will ask the runner to be very careful, not to use the cell phone at the start, during the race, during the race, and also at the finish.
Applicants can register to take part in the full marathon starting from October 15th, the half marathon from October 22nd, and the 10-kilometer race from October 29th. Wheelchair participants can register for the 3-kilometer or 10-kilometer races starting from November 5th. The marathon route will be the same as last year, starting from Nathan Road in Tsim Sha Tsui and ending at Victoria Park. To reduce overcrowding, organizers plan to stagger the starting times. Athletes will be grouped, and for each category, there will be 3 to 4 different start times. For the 2014 marathon, they've increased the enrollment quota to 73,000. If you think you've got what it takes or you want to give it a try, you can register online before the 30th of November. Rani Samtani, TVB News.
All right, Tony, one of those stories was a tongue twister there. You handled that great, if I may say so myself.
Lots of names.
Yeah. Thanks so much for watching and good evening.
Good evening.